The amazing story begins in Venus City, where many crows were present. Suddenly, a large eagle appears among the crows and starts killing and eating them. These events seem to be signaling that something bad was going to happen soon. Here, we are introduced to a man named Hercule, who was once a very famous psychologist and doctor. As Hercule was about to leave his house, many people were waiting to meet him to solve their cases. However, Hercule did not give much importance to any of them and began to leave because he had retired many years ago and no longer dealt with such matters. Those who knew about Hercule's work wanted him to solve their cases. Among these reporters, one man became persistent and followed Hercule. Suddenly, one of his officers arrived and started to attack the man. The officer's job was to protect Hercule at all costs. When Hercule went to have breakfast, the officer showed him an apple and said that a lady had come to meet him, claiming she knew him. As soon as Hercule saw the apple, he understood who the lady was, so he asked for her to be brought in. The lady who appeared before him was someone who had known him for a long time. She was a writer who had written many famous articles and made any topic trend. This writer had also worked with Hercule in the past, and since then, they had become very good friends. Now, the writer had come to Hercule with an important and complicated case. Although Hercule had stopped solving cases, after some convincing, he agreed to listen. The writer explained that the daughter of a famous personality named Riven had died in a mysterious way. The daughter had been engaged to her lover, and they were about to get married, but she died unexpectedly. It was still a mystery who was behind her death. The writer also mentioned that Riven believed the death was caused by ghosts and spirits living in her house. She thought that these spirits forced her daughter to die, and this was something they were investigating. Hercule was intrigued after hearing all this and became interested in the case. The writer informed him that Riven was hosting a huge Halloween party at her house, where she was inviting many children and treating them well. She invited Hercule to the party because something dangerous was about to happen, and he needed to see it for himself. So, Hercule went along with the writer. At Riven's house, many children were celebrating Halloween. After calling all the children inside, they were told many ghost stories. One of these stories described how evil spirits haunted the house and had spread a disease that caused all the children to die from cancer. After their death, the souls of all those children were trapped inside this house, and anyone who visited the house would try to scare them. The children were initially terrified, but later it was revealed that these were just stories. The children were then sent to get food and drink. Next, we are introduced to a servant named Lena, who is seen talking to a girl. This girl was the daughter of a doctor who used to live here. After asking the girl many questions, the scene shifts to Hercule and the writer. The writer explains that Ramona's daughter, Alicia, also died in this house, and her mother believes that many spirits were responsible for her daughter's death. Shortly after, Ramona arrives and says that she is willing to do anything to find out who killed her daughter. To aid in this, Ramona had called a few priests to the house, who arrived wearing strange masks. Ramona instructs them that she has placed all the ritual items upstairs and that they can continue the rituals whenever they want. One of the priests, after removing his mask, senses that spirits are still present in the house. However, Hercule does not believe in ghosts or spirits. He challenges the priest, telling him that if spirits really exist, they should prove it. Suddenly, a large chandelier falls from the ceiling. No one had touched it, and it fell by itself. Despite this, Hercule is still not convinced. The priest and the others move upstairs to the room where Alicia used to live. On their way, they meet a doctor. This is the same doctor whose son Lena had been talking to earlier. It is revealed that this doctor used to work in the military, but after many of his friends died tragically, he fell into depression and eventually became the family doctor of the house. Eventually, Hercule, Ramona, and the priests arrive in the room where Alicia lived. The room is messy, with things scattered all over. Hercule is unsure of what the priests will do next. Lena explains to him that Ramona loved her daughter Alicia very much. Alicia was a very famous singer and had earned a lot of money on her own. During this time, Alicia fell in love with a man named Max, and they got engaged. They were about to get married soon. However, Alicia started feeling something strange inside the house. She claimed that the spirits in the house were torturing her. Initially, these claims were not taken seriously, and as a result, Alicia went mad. The spirits in the house did indeed attack and torture her. Eventually, the dangerous spirits threw Alicia from the upper floor to her death. These events led Ramona to want to know which spirits were responsible for her daughter's death. Soon after, we are introduced to Max, the man who was engaged to Alicia. He comes to Ramona and asks who invited him to the party, as he had no interest in attending. Ramona replies that it was her party, and she wouldn't invite someone like him. After Alicia's death, Max had developed a strong hatred for the house, and his relationship with Ramona was also strained. As the ritual began, the priest started instructing everyone. Before starting, the priest explained that she would connect with Alicia's spirit, and whatever the spirit communicated would automatically be typed on the typewriter. This was presented as proof that Alicia's spirit was really speaking through her. Hercule, still skeptical, became curious to observe these events. After completing the ritual, the priest began communicating with Alicia's spirit. The priest's voice suddenly changed, and it seemed like she was actually speaking with Alicia's soul. Whatever was being said was automatically typed on the typewriter. Hercule, closely watching everything, began his own investigation. When he turned on all the electricity, he discovered that there were footprints inside the chimney. Hercule immediately reached into the chimney and pulled out a man. It turned out that this man had been with the priest, and he had an automatic controller that was causing the typewriter to write by itself. According to Hercule, the priest was lying, and there was no such thing as spirits. However, just as he was beginning to piece everything together, something strange happened with the chair the priest was sitting in. The priest's chair started spinning uncontrollably, and it seemed like something was trying to harm her. Suddenly, the priest collapsed in front of Ramona and said that someone had attacked her very brutally inside the house. After saying this, the priest regained consciousness after a brief moment. Hercule, who was sure that the priest was acting, came to ask her some questions. The priest, however, insisted that what had just happened was not part of any act. It seemed like her body was no longer under her control. Despite this, Hercule still did not trust her. The priest then suggested that Hercule try wearing her mask and gown to understand the truth for himself. Hercule decided to try it out, so he put on the priest's mask and gown and started walking around the house. When he felt thirsty, he went into a room and bent down to drink some water. At that very moment, a dangerous shadow appeared and tried to drown him in the water. The intentions of whatever was behind Hercule were malicious. After being trapped in the water for a long time, he began to suffocate, but eventually, he was let go. Luckily, a doctor arrived just in time to rescue Hercule from the water. After regaining his senses, Hercule was sure that the priest had to be behind this attempt on his life. When he and the doctor went to confront the priest, they heard a scream. Shortly after, they discovered that the priest had been murdered. She had been pushed from a height, and upon falling into a statue, she died instantly. The priest's death was incredibly brutal, and the mystery of who did it only deepened. Hercule, who was injured, was being taken care of, but everyone in the house, especially Ramona, was deeply troubled. Ramona was determined to find out who murdered her daughter, Alicia. People were shocked by the priest's death, particularly her two employees who had worked closely with her. Hercule started to believe that the priest must have known who was behind Alicia's murder, and that perhaps someone from the house had killed the priest to cover up the truth. Hercule became more serious about the investigation and decided to take control of the situation. He locked all the doors in the house and declared that, as a detective, he would solve the case and find out who murdered the priest. Hercule then starts questioning Ramona about what Alicia liked. Ramona takes Hercule and the writer upstairs, where there was a small patch of farmland. This area was frequented by bees that produced honey, which Alicia loved. The honey helped maintain her health, and it was a significant part of her routine. Ramona also shares that she still hears her daughter's voice, and it seems like Alicia is in great pain, demanding justice for what happened to her. Hercule carefully observes everything and begins his investigation. Hercule begins to suspect Max, Alicia's fiancé, as he behaves strangely calm, as if nothing significant happened. However, Hercule knows that making accusations without evidence is wrong, so he decides to gather more proof. Hercule visits the doctor, who was performing the autopsy on the priest's body. The reports from the doctor indicate that there were no signs of force or violence on the priest's body. Instead, it appeared that the priest had walked on her own and jumped from a height. This made it difficult for Hercule to believe, as he typically trusts practical explanations. The doctor seemed frustrated and was being comforted by his son, Edgar. The doctor also told Hercule that, when he was in the military, many officers around him had been killed, which left him with disturbing memories. The doctor continued to express his sadness about Alicia, explaining that she had been seeing ghosts in the house for a while, and her health had deteriorated because of it. Despite his efforts, the doctor regretted that he could not help her. Eventually, Alicia's dead body was found in the garden area of the house. Hercule, sensing something was off, went to the washroom to gather his thoughts. As he was washing his face, he saw the reflection of Alicia's ghost in the mirror. Startled, Hercule turned around, but there was no one there. A moment later, Edgar, the doctor's son, entered, reading a book. He calmly reassured Hercule that everything would be okay. Despite his young age, Edgar showed a lot of moral wisdom. For a long time, Edgar had been taking care of his disturbed father. Hercule then asked Edgar about the book he was reading, and Edgar started telling him about it, which turned out to be quite interesting. As Hercule moved forward, he suddenly saw a girl. Hercule requested her to come forward, assuring her that they wouldn't harm her. After some time, the writer arrived and asked Hercule who he was talking to. Hercule explained that he was trying to convince the girl to come forward, but unfortunately, there was no one there. The writer started to suspect that Hercule might be hallucinating. However, just as this conversation was happening, terrifying noises began to emerge, which everyone could now hear. The noise intensified, and everyone started to follow the sounds, trying to trace its source. Eventually, they reached the basement, and to their shock, they discovered several dead children's bodies. The state of the bodies was horrific. Edgar quickly identified them as the children who had died from the illness, which had been mentioned in the story about the haunted house. Suddenly, Max suggested that maybe these events had been caused by Edgar's father, the doctor. This accusation angered the doctor, who began to argue with Max, and the two got into a physical altercation. Edgar tried to intervene, asking his father to step back. At the same time, Hercule saw a skeleton and approached it. As he got closer, bees started to swarm out of the skeleton. The bees attacked Hercule, and he couldn't tell if this was part of a hallucination or if it was really happening. Edgar then took his father away, as he seemed to be getting worse. He gave his father some medicine and advised him to rest. When Hercule visited the doctor again, the doctor asked if he was also seeing hallucinations. Hercule didn't respond, and he left the doctor in Alicia's room, locking the door behind him. Hercule then directly approaches Max and tries to ask him the truth. Max is extremely frustrated and keeps saying, "I loved Alicia so much, why would I take her life?" He explains that when they were about to get married, they started living together in this house. But after some time, Alicia's behavior suddenly changed, and she began acting irrationally. She tried to break up with him, and then, a few days later, Max receives the news of Alicia's death. Max was so disturbed by this news that he started to dislike this house and didn't even want to come to this invitation. Hercule now asks Max for the invitation he had received. Hercule closely examines the invitation card. As he is reading the card, he suddenly sees an apple in front of him, an apple that he had seen in several places before. After thinking about these things repeatedly, Hercule figures something out. Instead of suspecting Max now, he directly suspects the writer and his office officer. He calls both of them to a room and begins questioning them. Hercule knew that his writer friend liked apples a lot, and that's why he connected this case to the writer and the officer. Hercule also learns that when Alicia's murder happened, the officer was the one who came here and pulled her out of the water. After that, Hercule has no idea what the officer did to destroy the evidence, but he understood enough to realize that the writer wanted everyone to believe in her novels and supernatural powers. This was the reason why the writer had called Hercule here and made him do all these things. Hercule now believes that the writer was the one who murdered the priest as well. After some time, the writer admits that she had intentionally called Hercule here to eliminate his doubt about ghosts. Suddenly, it is revealed that the doctor, who was kept in Alicia's room, had stabbed himself and committed suicide. When Edgar sees his father dead, he becomes very upset and goes to another room to cry. After this murder, Ravina and everyone else becomes quite scared. They began to feel that the ghost in the house had controlled the priest in the same way it had controlled the doctor to take his life. In other words, this house was haunted, and they needed to leave as soon as possible. Everyone began collecting their things quickly to get out of there, but Hercule still wanted to make every possible effort to uncover the truth. Suddenly, Lena appears in front of him and tells him something important. Lena explains that when Alicia was ill, her condition kept worsening, and this all started happening after Ravina gave her a strange kind of medicine. Lena believes that the medicine was the reason Alicia started experiencing hallucinations, which eventually led to her death. Hercule suddenly starts finding photographs of young Alicia in frames. He recalls that the ghost of this girl had appeared to him before. He immediately goes to Alicia's room to investigate, and as he does, a spirit appears and knocks over a cup. Upon inspecting the scene, Hercule finds a torn photograph, which is of Max and Alicia. After looking at it, Hercule uncovers something important. He quickly instructs the officer to lock all the doors and gathers everyone in the hall. Hercule explains that one of them is the murderer, and these events weren't caused by ghosts. The murderer has been identified, and the reason behind the crime has been uncovered. Hercule then declares that the murderer is none other than Ravina. Everyone is shocked to hear Ravina's name. She herself denies the accusation, but Hercule reveals the truth. Ravina didn't want Alicia to marry Max and leave. That's why she intentionally started extracting honey from strange flowers. When Alicia became sick, Ravina mixed that honey with her medicine. The honey was made from a special type of flower, and after consuming it, Alicia started having hallucinations. This caused her mind to spiral, and she became close to going mad. Ravina believed that if Alicia acted crazy, Max would never accept her. In this way, Ravina kept increasing the dosage. Lena didn't know that Ravina was secretly giving her daughter this medicine. She had given Alicia more medicine, thinking it was just normal medication, and due to consuming such a high dosage, Alicia eventually died. Lena was heartbroken because she had no idea about any of this. But the real killer was Ravina. When Ravina found out about her daughter's death, she staged the whole scene to make it appear as if Alicia had been attacked by ghosts. She made marks on her daughter's body and even threw water from a height to make it look like a supernatural attack. Fortunately, Hercule's officer, who had pulled Alicia's body out of the water, had arrived. Afterward, the doctor conducted a proper autopsy of Alicia's body. It was during the autopsy that the doctor discovered traces of poison in her body and realized that it wasn't anyone else but her mother who had poisoned her. The doctor knew the truth, which is why he began blackmailing Ravina. Ravina never wanted the truth to come out, so she promised to pay the doctor a large sum of money and hired him to work for her. Afterward, Ravina started spreading stories that the house was haunted and that the ghosts had killed her daughter. She did this so no one would suspect her. When the priest arrived, he too discovered the truth that Alicia had been murdered. This is why Ravina tried to kill the priest and succeeded in doing so. But now everyone was asking, who killed the doctor, because the door had been locked, and the key was with Ravina. It was soon revealed that Ravina had called the doctor and threatened to kill his son unless he took his own life. To avoid this, the doctor ended up killing himself with a knife. Now, all the truth about Ravina was out in the open. She started running away, shouting that she only wanted to protect her daughter, but everything had gone so wrong that she couldn't control it anymore. Ravina kept running toward the upper floor, and Hercule followed her. In her attempt to protect herself, Ravina grabbed a weapon, intending to kill Hercule. But just then, Hercule saw a strange shadow in the air. It was a spirit, the spirit of Alicia. For the first time, Hercule had seen a spirit with his own eyes. Alicia's spirit grabbed her mother, Ravina, and pulled her backward. Ravina fell directly from a great height and died, meaning Alicia's ghost had come to take its revenge. Hercule had witnessed all this with his own eyes, and his illusion that ghosts and spirits didn't exist had been shattered. The next day, the 3 dead bodies were rescued and taken away. After the case was solved, Hercule met with Edgar. Lena promised that she would take care of Edgar, but Hercule started telling Edgar that he had already known that he was behind all of this. The threatening letters that Ravina had received were not sent by the doctor but by Edgar. Edgar admitted to this because, at that time, he was facing financial difficulties and wanted to blackmail Ravina to get a lot of money. However, Hercule didn't consider Edgar as the criminal, so he told him to keep these things secret forever. Edgar could now live a comfortable life with the money, so everyone decided to part ways. Hercule had learned an important lesson, and he now believed in ghosts and spirits. Thus, our adventurous story ends here.